We're back with Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM, AM 1490 Brattleboro's news talk station. 23 degrees out there. The temperature's been dropping throughout the morning, and 22 past the hour. I'm your host, Olga Peters. Thank you for joining me. I will shortly bring on Randy Holhut from the Commons, but I just want to let everyone know that today's segment and conversation with Randy is being filmed by Brattleboro Community Television. Broadcast of Green Mountain Mornings tonight on BCTV is sponsored by the Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Hey, Randy, welcome to Green Mountain Mornings. How are you today?
Good morning, Olga. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Joyce.
Hi,
and
Joyce.
Yes, the groundhog saw his shadow.
Well, and someone else had a birthday.
Yes, the Joyce.
Happy birthday, Joyce.
Yeah, she doesn't want to talk about it.
Okay, we won't. Let's talk instead about a great piece Wendy Levy put together for the Commons this week about Community Asylum Seekers Project.
Yes, that was an excellent piece and an example of what a small group of committed people can do in the face of a huge humanitarian disaster. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, there's thousands of people there fleeing gang violence, death squads, all sorts of unspeakable things in Mexico and Central America. Some of it stirred up by U.S. policy, especially in Central America.
Right.
And these people aren't looking to scam us. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for a place where they can be safe, live and be able to live out their dreams of being useful and purposeful people in society.
You mean like a lot of people in this community want?
Yeah. like our parents when they came.
Yeah.
My grandparents when they fled Germany to come to this country in the 20s. Like a lot of families, I dare say. Mm-hmm. But so when you go to the border and seek asylum, it's in the age of Trump, it's difficult. And you got a lot of things have to go right, so you don't end up in the immigration jails that have been springing up. And if you have somebody to sponsor you, like this group in Rockingham, mm-hmm. You could end up in immigration limbo. But if you do have a family that will vouch for you, then the whole machinery goes into action of getting you asylum status.
So, in other words, what this group does is it pairs sponsors and asylum seekers?
Yes, and also just volunteers. So, the family that Wendy wrote about, that there was a place waiting for them in Vermont where they could stay for the time being and get their bearings. Mm-hmm. And until it was time to move on to the next step of the process. And there's still more slots available for people in Vermont that want to take in refugees from Mexico and Central America. If you contact the group, they would be happy to accept your help.
So the group is called the Community Asylum Seekers Project. And they're based in Rockingham, you said, Randy?
Yes. A familiar Brattleboro name, Steve Crofter.
Yes.
From Crofter Moving.
Yep.
He's the person in charge of it. So you can email info@caspvt.org for information, or go to their website, caspvt.org, and find out what they're about. But just a good example of ordinary people stepping up to fill a gap that needs to be filled, and that's the traditional Vermont value of being welcoming and helping out your neighbors when they're in trouble, even if your neighbors are speaking Spanish and you've never met them before.
I have to say that one reason this piece caught my eye, besides the fact that Wendy did such a great job, when I talk to one of the journalists I speak to weekly, a woman named Ellen Ratner from Talk Media News, she's an old news hound and's been in the business and has a very deep network of contacts, some of which are in Homeland Security and ICE. And she says that the folks there have told her that since the Trump administration came into office, it used to be that ICE would go after people who had broken their visas or had stayed beyond their visas or committed a very, very serious crime or, very specific parameters. But under the Trump administration, they've been given orders to just go after everyone.
Yeah, because the
regardless.
Obama administration's policy was that, we're going to go after the people that actually committed crimes, although, under Obama there were a lot of deportations, a surprisingly high number of deportations. Under Trump, it's just that, they're stalking schools, they're stalking churches, courthouses, hospitals.
Yeah. Yeah, the new parameter is this: if the person's an immigrant, they're fair game.
Yeah, even if they're already in the process towards citizenship and they're going down to the office to fill out the form they need to fill out, they're still getting whisked away to the jails, which of course are privately run too.
Yes, there's that.
Yeah, many of the detention facilities, and the conditions in those facilities are a national embarrassment.
It's really tricky, I think, and it just leaves me with such a bad feeling in my stomach having profit linked to things like deportation and crime. It adds too much of a incentive on the part of the prison system.
Well, which might explain why everyone's favorite racist Keebler elf, Jeff Sessions, is so big on revving up the drug war again, because the private prisons need customers.
Right.
And so you get policy like that, just like you get policy like trying to criminalize every person whose immigration status might not be totally on level, like the dreamers, the kids who came into this country with their parents.
Right.
And they know nothing of the countries they're going to get shipped back to.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because they are essentially Americans.
Yeah, they're essentially American kids and got plenty to contribute to this country, and we're going to send them back? What kind of dumb policy is that? Oh, that's right, our presidents.
Yeah, was that a rhetorical question, Randy?
It could be.
Randy and I will return after the break, and we have a lot more meaty state and national news to talk about. Welcome back to Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM and AM 1490 Brattleboro's News Talk Station. 23 degrees out there, 38 past the hour, and want to continue my conversation with Randy Holhut, Deputy Editor of The Commons. We have, an actual race for Select Board.
Yes, a very interesting race, but it kind of turned out a little differently.
Okay.
Tim Wessel and Brandy Starr, the two one-year seats on the board, occupants of the two one-year seats on the board right now, up for re-election. Mm-hmm. So you continue with the one or go for the three. Tim tried both and ultimately settled on the one. Brandy went for the big prize, went for the 3-year seat, and lo and behold, Brandy's unopposed.
Dun, dun, dun.
And Tim gets one of the more intriguing matchups of the last few years. He gets two newcomers, but two people who are fairly well known in the community, and that's Chantalee Gander and Bill Fortune.
Yes.
Bill, you know him from NECA, and of course from the movies. And and his new book, or the book that came out recently, Philosophy. If you
Oh,
want to find out where he's coming from. And as for Shanta, well, she's been involved in the arts in Brattleboro since she arrived here a few years ago, and has done publicist also, and just as a veritable whirlwind of activity that just kind of like a tornado coming through. But both are would bring a lot different energy. Not to mention that if I'm not mistaken, these are the first African American candidates to run for the Brattleboro Selectboard.
Oh.
A year after a year of talking about diversity, that's a pretty powerful statement.
It is very powerful. I'm not sure they're the first candidates, but I'm not sure. I think this is no, they're not the first African American candidates. But I think it's the first time we've had more than one African American candidate at a time.
Well, I would have to look that up because I can't. I've been here 30 years and can't think of it.
Leah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And did Sheila serve on the select board, or was that only the school board?
School board.
Okay. So, but yes, I think this is the first time we've had two candidates of color.
And
in one race.
And two very charismatic candidates.
Yes.
And accomplished candidates.
I'm really excited to hear. I've known Tim for a few years. I've known Shanta as well, and so I've gotten a chance to hear Tim's thoughts on a lot of things town related. I'm excited to hear Shanta and Bill's thoughts and some of their ideas on how to tackle some of the issues facing Brattleboro. They're two such creative people.
Yeah, and it also reinforces the transition of Brattleboro into the arts town.
Good point. Yeah.
You may like it or not. This is Brattleboro is an arts town. Mm-hmm. And it's a major industry in Brattleboro. It employs a lot of people.
It does.
It generates a lot of income, and so this is so this may be the chance. Not so much of having people of color on the board, but having artists on the board.
Mm-hmm. And artists that aren't starving, which is also wonderful.
Yes, although I don't know Bill's role in the NECA financial crisis. He kind of was not implicated in any of it.
Okay. Now, do we have a firm date on the Select Board forum?
Well, I've been in correspondence with Cora from BCTV about. Actually, on Tim's suggestion, because I was up at the town clerk's office on Monday. We were waiting for the Tim was the last person to turn in his papers.
Well, he has been a little busy with a new one in the family.
Yes, a little baby.
Little baby.
Well, anyways, he suggested that the Commons and BCTV team up for a forum, and I thought, great idea, so let's do it. So I been talking with Cora all week, and we've kind of narrowed down on a date, tentatively February 21st, time 6 to 7:30. I would have gone an hour a little bit later, but I guess in Brattleboro, 6 o'clock is the optimal time for these things.
Okay.
And the tentative spot would be the library meeting room at Brooks Memorial Library. Mm-hmm. Although if we get enough people, I'm sure a Star would give us the downstairs.
Yes, probably.
But and that would be a wonderful setting for a forum. Mm-hmm. And tentatively, the panelists are you and hopefully Wendy Levy from the Commons. Oh,
that'll be a good night.
And whomever else maybe, if we need three people, or just the Glamour twins to take care of the interrogation.
Wendy and I can't hold our own, but
yes,
it could be fun to have a third person.
Or maybe I'll have to jump in.
You're going to be moderator.
Yes, I guess I'll have to be.
Do you like this, folks? We are planning this forum as we speak. You are hearing it live in real time.
Yes, so, yes, when you think democracy's messy, try talking about democracy.
Yeah, try organizing journalists. It's a whole new level of herding cats.
Well,
Yeah, we have issues with authority and organization. So there you go. So yes, looking forward to that. Looking forward to the three-way race between Tim Wessel, Chantalee Gander, and Will Fortune. Whoever wins, the town will be richer for it, because I have a feeling we're going to have some great conversations
yes.
before the ballots are cast. Talking about ballots, there's some exciting news coming out of northern Vermont about a potential gubernatorial candidate.
Yes, Christine Hallquist.
Mm-hmm.
If that name rings any bells, she is the CEO of the Vermont Electric Co-op. And 7 days this week, John Walters, their political columnist, broke the news that Hallquist is all but decided to run for governor as a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Democratic field for governor right now consists of a 13-year-old named Ethan Sonborn.
Okay.
Let that sink in for a minute.
Wait,
And,
well, it
James,
is, because I thought you had to be of legal voting age to run for office.
Good question, but Ethan's running.
Okay, good on him.
And James Ellers,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm pronouncing it correctly, who's an environmental advocate and
Oh, yes.
not very, but it's one of these things that there's an unspoken tradition in Vermont that a governor-elect gets a free pass on his first election after 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That no sitting governor's been voted out of office since Ray Kaiser back in 1962.
Okay.
After one term. So, the Democrats are naturally afraid. Hello?
Yes?
Well, I just heard a beep on the line.
Oh, okay. That's you. That's all
Yeah.
you.
Okay, well, someone's not listening to the radio. Anyways, so the Democrats were naturally just kind of, don't want to waste our time running in a race we don't want to win.
Mm-hmm.
But, elections are funny things. And, you don't win unless you run.
Right.
And in the case of Christine, who is Joyce and I had a chance to interview for Vermont Business Magazine for a cover story back in during the summer. Mm-hmm. She is very intelligent, good business person. She turned around the electric co-op, which was really in deep financial trouble at the turn of the century, and got it back into solvency. Worked for IBM and Digital as a computer programmer. But of course, the thing that everyone will seize upon in this race, of course, is that this is the first openly transgender gubernatorial candidate in American history.
Ah, okay, yes. Yep. And if she wins the primary in August, then that would really be a milestone.
Yes.
Well, I read John Walters' article as well, and in part I read it because he'd been teasing me all week, saying, I have a big scoop, I can't tell you anything more than that. It's coming out on Tuesday. John! But one thing I found really heartening in the article is how Christine talked about how she's been asked to run in the past. And she just said, now's not a good time. But like so many other people, she was inspired by the Women's March. And she's been inspired by, the Trump administration and some of the vitriol that comes out of that administration. And she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not standing by and doing nothing.
the number of people that have been radicalized by Trump, it's amazing. And we talked last week, or the last time we got together, about how many women have announced their intentions to run for public office, at the local, state, and federal level.
Right.
And that's pure orange man.
I do feel that as much as we don't want to think there's any silver lining to Trump's presidency, I do feel that this is actually part of the silver lining. That a lot of folks who might have been willing to sit on the sidelines but have a lot to offer are now stepping forward and being like, you know what, folks? We're rolling up our sleeves and we're getting down to business.
Well, it's just a reminder that victories are never permanent.
True.
And gains are, and history doesn't always move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that you want to keep the things you fought and won for. You got to show up and be there and keep defending them.
Yeah. Yeah, because democracy is a moving target.
It is.
It all depends on who shows up and participates. Randy, as someone who has met Christine,
yes,
what do you think? One thing I find really intriguing about her, if she runs against Scott, Scott has made a lot about his business mind and his ability to do business. Well, here is someone who is as accomplished, if not more accomplished, as a business person than Scott.
Well, I mean, Scott runs his construction company, and that's okay. But when you think of the shape that the VEC was in when Christine got there,
mm-hmm.
when it was, they were about to lose their certificate of public good. Their bonds had fallen to junk bonds rate status, and she turned around and got the finances stable, built up their renewable energy portfolio to the point where only 3% of their power comes from fossil fuel.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So she's had a really successful career as an engineer and as a business person. And, and progressives shouldn't be scared off by the fact that George Aiken is one of her favorite political role models because, even though the governor was a staunch Republican, that was before Republicans lost their minds.
Yeah, this is a very different Republican Party in George Aiken's time.
Yes.
Yeah. And what do you think about Christine's kind of vision and her ability to be creative and find interesting solutions?
Well, very creative. We spent a lot of time laughing in that interview because we didn't know what to expect when we got there, and to meet her. We met her in one of the in the co-op's legal offices in Montpelier, and we had a good time. It was a really enjoyable interview because she was so smart, and we found that perhaps her real problem growing up was not gender identity, but that she was a geek.
Ah. Yes.
Being a geek is just as difficult as depending on where you are growing up, as questioning your where you're at on the gender continuum.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to say that's something else I find really exciting about Christine is talking about gender. She's also pretty open about how she has experienced new gender norms, moving from living as a man to living as a woman. And I just think that, that's a real wealth of experience to also bring to someone who's making policy.
Yes, and this is not going to be, if this is the matchup for governor this fall of Phil Scott and Christine Hallquist, it's going to be an interesting election because this is the type of candidate that, if the Republicans hadn't lost their mind, they would embrace wholeheartedly.
You know what? That's a really good point. Because she is. She's that business leader. She's that, she has a lot of kind of Republican stereotypical qualities on the surface.
But at the same time, she supports single-payer health care, legalizing cannabis, and believes there should be a social safety net.
Yes.
So, the Connor Casey's quote in John Walter's column that, she's not wearing a Che Guevara T-shirt, but she's definitely a Democrat.
Actually, go ahead.
I would say that.
My favorite quote from that article, and hopefully I will get it right, but I think talking about T-shirts, it needs to be on a T-shirt. Christine is quoted as saying, "I'm ready for the circus to come to town because that's how we make change."
Yes, you got that. You got it right.
Yes,
because there will be a circus. Remember the circus around civil unions and all the right wing turkeys who came into Vermont hoping to stir up trouble.
Right. Oh, I'd forgotten. I had pushed that out of my mind, but you're correct.
Well, I'm thinking of Randall Terry, the anti-abortion terrorist who came in.
Oh yeah. Yep, I remember that.
Trying to stir up trouble and was pretty much shouted out of town.
Mm-hmm. Well, we look forward. Hopefully, Christine is supposed to have a family meeting this weekend to make the final decision. So hopefully next week we may hear officially if she's running.
Well, we'll watch that, but I think it's exciting for the state of Vermont.
Same here. Randy, unfortunately, we have run over our time limit, so I have to let you go.
Okay.
But as always, wonderful to talk to you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. That was Randy Holhut from The Commons. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and we're kind of right up against the clock, so I'm going to let the rest of the hour run out. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in today.